Perfect. Susie, I'm super excited to have you here today. We are all are very excited to have you here today. I am especially excited because Laura and I were talking about this, and we actually dove in a little bit. I went into my LinkedIn. I said, I talked to Susie way back in the day because I was so interested in her brand, and I dropped the ball on that. But back on April 17, 2017, I reached out to you because I thought you were going to be huge, and I was excited to be part of that brand. I dropped the ball on not trying to get in front of you a lot more so I could make an investment. But regardless, Susie, it's been a pleasure watching and learning through your journey. I think as an 11-time Ironman competitor, you have the drive, the focus, and what it takes to be an entrepreneur. And I'm going to say that when you have and you bring to the game that level of competitiveness, there's no way of taking you off the eye of where you're going. So it's phenomenal. And I think that, you know, taking your 30 years of CPG experience and stepping out into the world and saying, I'm going to create something that's great. I see that there's a void. And by all means, your products are phenomenal. And of course, the fact that you took all of that learning from Procter & Gamble, Pepsi, Kraft, Zag, Weight Watchers, all of that drove it into creating a fantastic brand that you have today. And I'm excited to hear, obviously, your talk. But not only am I excited and everybody's happy for where you've come from and what you've done, but the world's also given you some awards because of all of the great things you've done. And the latest one being the RBC Women of Influence Award. So congratulations to that. And again, we're so excited to have you here today. And I turn the floor over to you. But again, fantastic job on what you've done in the CPG world and what you've done with your business.
Well, thank you, Jeffrey. That's a very nice introduction. And indeed, in April 2017, our share price was 10 cents. So might have been good to connect back then. It was
I should have pushed harder.
We had a pretty wild ride for the audience. I'll just chat on kind of three quick themes, a quick summary of the wild ride that we've had, and then the impact of COVID. And then I just want to do some quick points on kind of the three key messages. The first one is the positioning, product, pricing. The second one is the role of the CEO as both the brand champion and being scrappy. And then the third one is talk a little bit about kind of the where we are now with COVID and then the future, if that's okay. And I'll pause.
That's perfect.
For questions.
And I'll jump in and ask you some questions near the end. So you're good to go. Thank you.
So we have like maybe 10 minutes and then 10 more minutes of questions, something like that.
That works perfect.
Okay, so I'll go kind of pretty quick. So Jeffrey summarized my story, but it essentially started at age 45. My health had taken, even though I'd done 11 Ironmans, I had been following a low-fat diet for 40 years. We've all been misled for 40 years. We need fat, our brains need fat, our bodies need fat. And in the hope of kind of losing those last 10 pounds or running a little bit faster, biking faster, I was always trying to manage the fats I ate. And that was really bad. So I got to my mid 40s. I had a VP of marketing job for 10, 15 years, and my health crashed. I had high blood pressure. I had IBS. I was bloated all the time and miserable, and I didn't know what was driving kind of feeling so miserable in the GI. And then I read the book Big Fat Surprise by Nina Teicholz. She spent 9 years as an investigative journalist, and she discovered that we all been duped with that one study by Mr. Ansel Keys in the 60s that said that, eating saturated fats and cholesterol creates cholesterol that then drives cardiovascular disease. Wrong. That's all been debunked in the late 90s and early 2000 with multiple mega studies, including a big Harvard deep review. And now we kind of have hundreds of clinicals looking at the health benefits of a ketogenic diet, because now it's gone from way beyond just eating good fats, but now the world is looking at sure, there's weight loss benefits of losing weight when you eat low carb or keto, but then there's all the medical benefits of eliminating sugar and carbs from your diet with the big three metabolic diseases. So Alzheimer's, which is really type 3 diabetes, and then diabetes and cancer. So like the world has just shifted full 180 from the 40 years where we thought we were doing the good thing. So I read the book, was hitting 50, took my life savings, and then said, I'll start with 2 SKUs in 10 stores or 50 stores in Canada and Ontario, and in natural, and give it a shot. So we quickly went from 2017 launched, had 4 months at 40,000 per month. And then boom, 8 months later, we were $1 million per month. And then 12 months later, we were 7 million per month. So the brand literally took off from 150,000 in our first fiscal year to 8 million to 47 million. And that is a hyper growth company. It has its challenges when you're growing that fast. You don't have the luxury of time. So you can't build a natural brand like many have done, built incredibly beautiful and strong brands, but over 5 or 10 years between when you sell in the health food stores and you expand to the Costco and Walmarts and have North American distribution. We did it in 24 or 26 months. And that is certainly taxing in itself and requires certain type of people and certain skill set, and being scrappy. And then COVID hit. So we were kind of like a baby, infant, newborn brand. We were kind of month 1, January 2020, and then February 2020, we were 16,000 doors in the US. And then boom, COVID kind of comes along. Most food brands went through the roof, and all CPG food stock went through the roof. And then the bar category, however, declined about 40%, a little bit more in the health channel, a little bit less in the grocery channel. But on-the-go bars got decimated. Keto took a big hit. Number 3 is discovery, which is the gift to all founders in natural, is the gift of discovery. Madame Consumer goes to the shelf and she picks this, and what about this? What about that? Forget discovery. People had masks and they were in and out and not really interested in kind of discovering new brands. So it's been a really tough go for all startups, for all smaller brands. Our US business has been hit with these big headwinds. Our Canadian business was, a year older and very robust at tens of millions of dollars already. So we didn't get hit as much. So certainly went from hyper growth to humbled with some headwinds. So certainly kind of the full spectrum in terms of the leadership challenges. So that's kind of like the story in summary. And I'll just take a breath if there's a few questions, and then I'll kind of go to my 3 themes.
Susie, fire away on the 3 themes, and then I'll bring up after some questions.
Perfect. So the point number 1 is when you start a company or you want to start a company, the most important thing to plan out is positioning, product, price, value. It's kind of the triple Ps you learn in business school. It's so important. Spend most of your time optimizing your positioning. You can do that via concept testing. You can just DM me on the side to get. I think I'll do a whole tutorial on concepts and concept optimization and testing, because even if you don't have a lot of money and not a lot of skill, you should still optimize your concept. That becomes your point of difference. That becomes your packaging. That becomes your ads. That becomes your social campaign. That becomes the culture and the feel of the brand inside the company and outside the company. Optimize that as much as you can. Make sure that your product delivers on the promise of your brand positioning, which is a promise to the consumer. And then make sure that the price value to the consumer is right enough so that your positioning and your product and your price value all work together. And you can be premium, you can be discount, you can be parity to competitors. Those 3 Ps have to work together. Once that is as good as you think it can get, and you meet certain norms to know that you're going to sell a little bit, then you go into the execution and you launch and market, and then you spend money. You spend money to get on the shelf. You spend money to talk to the consumers, especially as per the previous session we just heard. But that's the quote easy part. The hard part is to make sure you have a winning brand positioning and product to bring to the market. So spend most of your time there. And then once you do hit the market, do fast adapt, fast adapt, fast adapt. We change our packaging 4 times. We've evolved our formulas 3 or 4 times, and we are continuing to optimize. And I'll talk about that in my third point. So that's the difference of the startup. So it brings me to the second theme of being scrappy. The big difference between my 20 years in the larger CPGs, and then I worked in 2 hyper growths before this company, is scrappy is kind of the main way to think about it. You kind of have to balance, making good sound decisions with 10-20% of the information, fast enough decisions. We after 6 weeks in the market on October 16th, I heard from one of the stores downtown that we were the number 1 and 2 selling bars. Boom, that night, it was employee of 1. That night I went to my little mini board and I said, we're launching 2 more bars, which is $200,000 of the, we'd only raised 400,000 plus my savings. So boom, make that decision. January 15, we were making the 2 new bars, and having 4 bars in January starting to roll out on shelves is what catapulted us to $1 million a month. So, and then boom, two more plant-based ones in August. And then we did a whole bunch of things. We got certified, like you kind of have to snap out of the maybe kind of slower, more prudent CPG, larger companies, to being comfortable making quick enough decisions based on what you know. And as a founder, you should be standing in stores, standing in front of consumers at demos, and standing in consumer shows. And I think I've done over 1,000 of those just in my first 3 years. COVID's put a dent in that. So that's point number 2. And then point number 3 is, in terms of the future, COVID has kind of created unprecedented challenges and new dynamics. We sampled 1.3 million mouths in 2019, and then COVID hits, right? Like it just blows a big hole in kind of everything, discovery keto on the go in our awareness and trial tactics. So we all have to react. If you're a younger brand, you're probably worried about cash flow. We were fortunate enough to raise enough cash at the beginning of COVID, but we still had to be really careful. So now that we're hopefully kind of coming out enough, I won't jinx the wave 4 conversation. It's all about innovation. So we have a pipeline of about 10 different products, each with several SKUs in our pipeline. And we're in the very exciting phase of product launch stage gate to kind of make sense of what will kind of move forward and launch first and second and third and all that kind of good stuff. So don't take your foot off the gas of innovation now that we're kind of back in a world that's opening up. So those might be my 3 tips.
Susie, that's fantastic. And thank you very much for sharing all of that. I'm going to first start by saying that when it came to the book that you read and defining and sharing that you realized that eating this no-fat diet was BS, I too came to the same resolution to that. The Big Fat Surprise was a fantastic book and opened up my eyes too. And I lived the same lifestyle that you did. And I realized that you needed the fats and that this was just some terrible marketing that got played on this, and I've read so many things around this entire space. So I'm glad that you tackled the problem and tackled it from the other side by reintroducing, which I'm going to go is on the name with good fats, and kudos to you for that. So brilliant, just absolutely brilliant. Now, taking that and all the experiences you have, one thing that really resonates with me and everything that you shared was that one, that you're a very driven go-getter, and you haven't changed any of that in your demeanor, you've carried that through the entire brand build, is that you're in the thick of it all the time. So you're innovating, you're diving into the brand. And what I love about that is that you're able to see where the market's trending. You're able to see where the problems are going to come. And I really want to emphasize this, because I think sometimes when we start to make it big, and as you have grown significantly, sometimes you take your eye off the ball, even though your foot's still on the gas. You start to shift the way you focus and the way you build your brand and your business. And that's one thing that your 3 points share that you didn't do. You didn't become the executive. You still became the entrepreneur that wanted to make sure that you were innovating, cost cutting, managing your brand and your business and every touch point. And I love that because I think that speaks to you as a person, speaks to your 11 Ironmans, because it shows that your determination to success is key. So can you talk a little bit more about how you look at your business today, pre-COVID, and how you dove in and said, you know what, we can clean this up. We can change this. We can fix this. We can cut the cost here, increase this, bring a better taste pattern for our customers, and then open this up, have more brands, generate more revenue. But bottom line, we need to keep innovating. How do you build that into your community or into your business?
Yeah, well, for sure. It's been a massive, big step change. And the first piece of advice to founders is to exactly do what you said and what I did. The first 2 years, I answered every single DM on all 3 platforms. Now I just answer LinkedIn. And I was standing in front of consumers for 4 days at the Boston Marathon and 100, like literally more than 1,000 touch points. And I think all founders that I'm connected with on LinkedIn seem to all do that. And that is really critical. You know, when I was in CPG, my connection with consumers was either my friends or family or behind a one-way mirror at focus groups. So you want to kind of be in the brand because like that's how you kind of are really tuned in. The world is like crazy now and kind of totally changed with COVID. But I think what we had to do, and we finished the year at 47 million. We had a couple $7 million months. So we had hired at one point, we were looking at 40 people, and then we had growth plans to continue growing the following year. So we had to right size a couple of times. We raised money. We had our largest raise ever in a Series A in January, or closed it in May 2020. So that kind of gave us some breathing room. We pulled back on people, and we've done a couple of rounds. So we're a lean little team of 14 now. We pulled back on all marketing. We kind of kept some customer marketing, some investment in mostly in the US with Whole Foods and Sprouts and Walmart and Kroger, but we really pulled everything back. And then we pulled back a little bit of trade, not as much as the big brands. And in retrospect, we probably could have pulled back a little bit more because the payout is just not there. Ads for feature ads don't work anymore. They got canceled. They don't work. And so, we kind of learned our way. But we've been gearing up for the last 4 months in particular to say, look, the world will reopen. Innovate or die is another theme of another speaking occasion or presentation I could do for the group. And it was really key to kind of make sure that we come out strong with both supporting our brands. We're doing a TV tests in LA starting in October. We're doing 4 to 8 weeks of a marketing heavy up in LA because we have a Costco test there right now. So we're gonna lean in and put some mega fuel and see how our digital and TV drives POS. We've always had success in the past, and that will drive our marketing plans for Q1, Q2, and then the innovation machine to come behind that fuel.
I love it. That's awesome. And maybe my last question for you is going to be, what does the future look like for you guys today? Add some innovation on what are the things that you're looking to solve as you move forward. And I'm assuming that based on all the things I've learned over the years about what you guys do, you're really heavily focused on the brand and really pushing that and resonating that brand with your consumer. So what does that look like to you in the next 2 to 3 years?
Yeah, the mission of the brand from 2016 to today hasn't changed. It's a mission to change how we eat, and do that by kind of having a billboard and a beacon brand of screaming love good fats and making it okay to eat good fats and cut sugar and carbs. So that hasn't changed. The brand basics of building a brand, category by category, getting to scale, and then expanding to adjacent categories that the consumer will embrace, have successful innovation, play again and again and again is pretty much the brand model. And so we're kind of, looking forward to 2022 being a year where we can roll out some exciting innovation.
I love it. One last thing, what's a trend and a tactic that you see for this year that's going to be really pushing your brand and your business? Or the category or globally? The
trend of low sugar is insane. So we kind of had keto just go crazy in 18 and 19, and then it softened up a little bit, and now it's going to come back with all the medical studies coming out. But low sugar has finally, even though it started in 2012, I think with Katie Couric's movie, it's finally here. And there's still a lot of misinformation on only 8 grams of sugar per portion. That's crazy. That's way too much, right? But at least we're starting the conversation. 1 to 2 grams of sugar, or 0 is even better. Aim for 0. But the low sugar trend is big. And I think, the e-commerce shoppers, the Instacarts of the world is dramatically changing the life experiences from the shopper to the retail stores. And we all have to, adapt to that because that's a big part of the consumers that are going there, including myself.
I love it. And from a tactic, I know you were working with Erica, and hopefully you guys were able to connect on your TikTok experience, but I see that you're expanding everywhere. So again, Susie, you've done a phenomenal job. Kudos to you and to the business. Amazing. And it's a pleasure to have you speak here today. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susie. Awesome. I'm a big fan, like you know.
Thanks, Laura.
Thank you. So we have our last panel topic, which is leveraging sustainability to grow your brand, with Amanda, Adam, and Stephen.
Hello.
Hey guys, how are you?
Good.
Awesome. So let's start by giving a 30-second introduction. Amanda, let's start with you.
Hi, my name is Amanda, and I run a company called Wilkin Coffee. We sell compostable Nespresso capsules. They work with your original line machine. Our coffee is roasted in Italy and imported, and we make a big effort to have a sustainability as part of our branding. And it's exciting.
Thank you. Adam?
Hey there, I'm Adam. I'm a longtime tech brand entrepreneur, so working primarily now in the CPG space. Help other impact-driven founders scale their CPG businesses, and very passionate about food systems and how it relates back to human health and climate action. Right now, I serve mainly as our COO at Scout, and we are a craft seafood cannery. And our mission is to be the most trusted seafood brand in North America. We do that by supporting local fishing communities, reducing food waste, and protecting our oceans and waterways. And I'm excited to be here today. Thank you.
Amazing. Stephen?
Hi, my name is Stephen Tyson. I'm the founder and CEO of Carbon Brewing. We are a sustainability and clean tech focused beer and beverage company based out of Toronto, Ontario. We're a pretty new brand. We're less than a year old now, but what we've been able to do is kind of leverage the idea of sustainability in an industry that has, a lot of focus on manufacturing and things that go into it, inputs and outputs and processes and things like that. So our heavy focus is on reducing emissions, getting to that net zero or even farther into the carbon negative space or carbon positive space, depending on how you look at it. So a lot of what we do is try to tell our story on why this is important for our industry, or why this is important for us as a brand. And that's basically what we've built a lot of leverage on.
Amazing. I'm big fans of all of you. Jeffrey?
Me too. I'm also a fan. But I want to thank you guys for joining us today. And it's really fascinating. Today we've gone through a couple of different panels, from talking about industry and trends, and then taking over the digital shelf. And now we're diving into leveraging the sustainability and to grow your brand through this whole sustainability category, which kind of follows into a trend. And how do we take this trend and really blow this up into something bigger? And I think what's actually happening, and you guys can probably all attest to this, is that you came in to do well and to do good, if we'll use that as a term, and build a brand that is sustainable, build a business that is sustainable from end to end. And we had Nicholas speak about how they went in and put together a brand that instead of using plastic, they went into the sustainability side of it and using Tetra Pak, all of the things that Susie's done. So taking all of these learnings today, what's fascinating is that even though this is somewhat of a trend, it's actually making such a huge impact in the world. And a lot of investors are starting to shift how they're investing. And they're actually looking for companies that are thinking about and or acting on and making sure that their businesses are sustainable. So I kind of want to drive a little bit more into that. And maybe, Stephen, you can talk a little bit about how your business, being that it's new, how you guys have really dived deep into this, because the beer making process probably uses a lot of everything in that process. And I'm sure I could get into how it's done, but you guys have really leveraged and dove so deep into this that almost every component of how you're operating has some form of sustainability built into it. And maybe you can talk a little bit about that process.
Yeah, I mean, I think you just mentioned a lot, and I was watching some of the previous panels on, how do you win the digital shelf and things like that. And I think one of the things you said was, if everyone is the same, if everyone had the same product, the same photography, same everything, what's the next difference? And the next difference is actually who your company is and what your company values. And so for me, like the definition of sustainability is the ability to maintain at a certain rate or level. And that's not necessarily just on, the environmentalism portion or global warming, but that's also supply chain, political, economics and things like that. And so up until this point, businesses have had to worry less about maintaining and more about growing. And now the heat is being kind of turned up literally and figuratively from, consumers and the world. And so basically like the consumer consciousness is kind of waking up to, this stuff. And it's not new practices. I mean, this has been around for years. You look at companies like Patagonia who've built billion-dollar empires on, putting sustainability first. So like, I think I have, kind of a problem with calling sustainability a trend. And I'm sure that some of these other people on the panel agree with me, which sustainability is not a trend. It's kind of an inevitable force. Or like a revolution that's happening, much like the agricultural revolution, the industrial revolution, or the information revolution, which, built the last 20, 50 years of business. And now it's like, okay, what's next? And what's next is sustainability and caring about what you're doing. So putting values first. So the consumers can see, like through brands with all this information, it's pretty easy to Google a brand and see what they're all about. And so, the ones who are focused on solving the problems that are facing society and not adding to them are going to be the ones that kind of win the race. So that's kind of why we've put sustainability, almost from an operations perspective first, rather than a marketing perspective. And because of that, we have now an authentic brand that people can connect with.
I love it. And one of the things that you really kind of shout loudly there is what the term of sustainability really means. And I'm sure Adam is like propped up right now and wants to jump in and say, wait a second, I'm going to tell you what sustainability is all about. And I am going to turn the floor over to you, Adam, to talk about that. But Stephen, I wholeheartedly agree on how I think it started as a trend for sure, because that's how anything starts. But I think where it's gone to is that people aren't settling with it anymore. They're not settling with this should be something that's fly by night. This should be here in every index and every vertical, and how we build companies. What we take out of the ground, we need to put back, and we got to stop abusing the world. So I think you guys have all done a great job on that. But Adam, maybe you can share a little bit about what sustainability means to you and to your brand.
For sure. And I think like, as we look at the entirety of the CPG category, the natural product side of CPG, better for you, better for the planet products, like dwarfs, conventional CPG products now. I mean, the size and growth of the better for you, better for the planet category on the consumer brand side is way, way, way bigger than the kind of traditional status quo brands. And we see it in grocery stores. Loblaws, has the new green section, and you can see that kind of footprint expanding within the retail side of things. And if you're a brand coming to market today and you don't have really strong values that connect your mission back to consumers' values around human welfare, environmental welfare, then you're probably not going to be successful. So, there's a better for you, better for the planet option alternative to pretty much every conventional product now. Where you used to be able to buy a Mars bar, you can now buy 50 different low sugar, free trade products, on that side of things, right down to home goods and cleaning products. So the natural products industry is kind of the status quo now. And that's why big CPG, whether you're Kraft Heinz or Kellogg's, they're either acquiring smaller companies, who have those values, or they're trying to mimic them by, incorporating some of these values into their own products and brands in their existing portfolios. So emerging brands who have come to market over the last several years with those really strong values and educating, engaging consumers on more responsible products, that's kind of trickled up the bottom up approach to big CPGs now having to pay attention and having to shift how they do business if they want to stay relevant. Or else they're going to get squeezed out off the shelf if they don't actually catch up to where things are headed. You can get by still if you're maybe a baby boomer or from an older generation. You may not have that same sense of responsibility to people and planet, but certainly millennials and Gen Zs are entirely dialed into that. And your brand is not going to survive unless you are standing for something. And we're kind of, we've moved away from the era where you can't be political as a brand. You can't, just kind of run the playbook of status quo and only value profit over people and planet. So, for Scout, just to use our reference as a company, when we took a hard look at what was going on in the seafood industry, it's abysmal. And you look at the supply chain, there's some of the biggest amounts of modern slavery that still exists in the world coming from the global seafood trade. There's a ton of environmental degradation, a lot of illegal fishing. Tuna is totally overfished in many parts of the world to the point of completely disappearing. Salmon has been overfarmed and overproduced, where it's now affecting the health of wild populations, and we're seeing species in decline all over the place. So where there's a lot of problems, there's also a lot of opportunity as a brand. And that's one of the things that, got me excited in building Scout was looking at the sheer amount of environmental and human rights abuses that were happening in seafood, and then be able to build a brand and a brand platform that was the challenge to that status quo in our particular category in shelf-stable seafood. So, the mission and your values end up also doubling up as your marketing engine, right? And that's the exciting thing. You don't have to go and invent stories. When you live by your values, you can totally turn that into great storytelling opportunities that end up resonating with your consumer base.
And it's great that the way the consumer base has been really focused as of late is that they're learning from many, many stories, many CPG, many service business, everything that you can imagine are coming out, and they're talking about this same problem. So it's really putting this on the forefront of the consumer. So the consumer is now looking at it and saying, I don't want to drink a cup of coffee in a pod that goes in a mix with 5 billion other pods on a daily basis. The amount of garbage and content that this creates, I want to be on somewhere that is someone's focused on fixing this. And I'm willing to switch my taste and stop buying the same standard product because this fits with my mission in life, which is I want to reduce my waste. And what you've done at Scout is phenomenal, because you've also looked at the category and said, you know what, this category is kind of old. It's not really moving a lot. There's not a lot going on in it. It's stale, but it's also not meeting the needs of what consumers are looking for. So we should come in, create something that's going to change the way people look at seafood, make it, and use that word sustainable, but make it, and maybe sustainable is not the right word. And I know we've chatted to differences of how that works, but utilizing the term of growth and putting the world before, or the ground or the soil or the earth before making money, and figuring out how can I replenish this and not affect future lives in 20 years where we've depleted everything. And now we have to go plant-based and we'll never know what a real fish tastes like because it's gone. But coming up with that whole concept of how can we be better at what we're doing? And I think the three of you really emphasize that. And Amanda, I'd love you to dive in a little bit more about kind of how you looked at this. And I know I alluded to how you changed the pod industry, but I think that to me, that makes a big difference, because you took something that was a phenomenal launch 20 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever the time frame was. I think it was 10 years ago, where they changed and revolutionized the way people were getting coffee. And the founder came out 5 years later and said, this is the worst invention I ever created. And then along comes Amanda and her business and says, hey, you did create the world's worst waste, but we're going to fix that. And you've done a great job of making share a little bit more about how you guys in your journey is kind of grown significantly and changed this vertical.
Yeah, definitely. So we really came into the market and saw sort of a niche around, specifically as like a first product around Nespresso. And really our whole philosophy when we started was really like, little things make a difference. And maybe they don't make a difference like right in the one cup of, I mean, I personally think they make a difference even on the one coffee, but we really believe that things compound over time. And so if you think about one pot in the garbage one day, like, all right, maybe for me, I think it's a big deal, but other people, whatever. And then, but if you multiply that by 2 billion people or whatever the number, you really get a problem that's becoming really obviously unsustainable and problematic. And so we sort of just saw a niche in the market as a way to start and say, you know what, we're small, we can't start on a global scale yet, but we can do this one thing where we can find a compostable capsule and you can still get a great tasting cup of espresso or coffee that you can put in your original line espresso machine. And then you just compost it when you're done. So, you know, we looked at it like little things add up and little things make a difference. And we also looked at it from a perspective of, it doesn't have to be perfect out of the gate in terms of, you know, when we look at our coffee, for example, our coffee has a compostable capsule. We're going to be introducing fair trade, like I think in a couple months. But we didn't start like that because we just didn't have the ability to. We just didn't have the suppliers or we didn't have manufacturing, whatever it was. And so really we look at it as a sort of incremental way of building sustainability over a long period of time. And then that's really what our brand stands for. And then as we do that, we want to obviously increase the product lines that we have that same sort of, philosophy where small things add up, little things make a difference, they compound over time, and eventually they have a really big impact in a way that you sort of just turn around and you're like, whoa, what happened? And it's kind of like a surprise. So it's been really exciting.
And people seem to resonate with that and they want to be part of that journey. So it's kind of amazing that you took a risk going into something that was a oversaturated category and you found your way through by providing something that the rest of them didn't, which was providing a product that was renewable and that everybody could live with and consume as much as they want and still be renewable at the end of the day.
Exactly. And, and too, like also we try to put that messaging in our marketing as well. And we also try to add additional items. So for example, one of our really popular products is called a Woken Mix, where you get to try all of our blends. And we added something called Verdant, which is basically giving away 75 cents. And that goes to plastic collection for the ocean. And we pay for that. Like the consumer doesn't pay for that. We pay for that. So, trying to find little things that we can do that can have impact is really important to us. And I'm a big fan. That's kind of how I like to just live my own life. And that's my own value system is, consistency and small things make a big difference. And it just takes time. It's not overnight, but, you'll look back a year from now and the whole, it'll turn around and everything will be new or different and exciting.
I love it. I'm hitting the red button, green button again, just because I haven't picked a color, but awesome. Brilliant. I love that. And giving back as you build a business is phenomenal and a great way to show that you're in this for the long haul and doing the right things. So I guess the next hard-hitting question I have, and I'm going to say hard-hitting because I have tried and consumed all of your brands many times. I am a big fan, top to bottom on the list here. So one thing I'm going to say or ask for the audience, can you make it work? Can you really grow a business and do everything from end to end to be sustainable, to make sure that your vendors, your partners, how you do your processes, is it possible? It seems like it is. You guys have turned out amazing products. They're not secondary. They're like top-notch, top quality Italian coffee, sustainable fish, tuna, everything you guys have done. Even the beer, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to admit on live, but I really enjoyed the beer too, of course. But just going through that whole spectrum, you guys have made it work. And you've been able to stick to your plan and build through that. Stephen, when you guys have done this in this mixture and putting this together, profitability wise, cost wise, can you stay competitive in this sustainable place that you're in?
Yeah, and I want to touch on something that both Adam and Amanda said, because it ties into how you make money off this, where, you can't have all the solutions from day one, as Amanda was saying. You have to incrementally change your business as supply chains allow or as people allow and vendors that you work with, because you might walk in and say, hey, do you have any sustainable options for t-shirts? And they might laugh at you and say, okay, we don't, they dust off this old dusty book on sustainability that, the old hippies used to use or whatever. And then they provide you with an option that's not that great. So, change happens incrementally. And the other thing that Adam said that was really interesting is turning waste into opportunity, right? You see all these opportunities, to solve problems, and it just becomes, that is the way that you make money. And that is the way that you make this successful, because you see all the things that other people don't, just by simply putting a different perspective on it. And so, we're kind of at the tipping point where sustainability makes sense as a business case to your question, where if you waste less, you spend less. And so for an example, let's say you're doing logistics and you optimize your routes, then you save gas, you save money, and you save the planet just by simply thinking about the problem from that perspective. So, even on a larger scale for sustainability projects, such as like solar panels or building, equipment or whatever, like the ROI is not only on the balance sheet now, it's also from the marketing perspective as well. So, the gone are the days of like going green costs you more, and like, that kind of like always has to be like the problem with why you should or shouldn't go green. It's just like, this makes financial sense now. It's on the balance sheets, it's on ESG reporting now, like investors are looking for it, like you mentioned before. So, you can make money because you use less waste and your cost of goods goes down. You can then build the supply chain up to give you a better secure supply chain and work with your suppliers on this. And so just everything works together to, and then you have a genuine story to tell people and connect with your brand. So from all perspectives, when I looked at this, I was like, yes, this makes sense, right? From business to marketing to branding to caring about what you're doing. And, you can create, as Adam mentioned, you can create authentic storytelling based on just simply doing what you think and what you believe in, right?
Yeah,
I love that. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to add to what you just said. I think there's this strange equation that I think as emerging brands that we're constantly figuring out. It's like, how much responsibility are we baking into our product that the consumer will still identify with, so that they're actually going to want to pay for at the end of the day, right? Because you can't shift all of that responsibility onto the consumers. And just like Amanda referenced, like they're taking 75 cents a unit out of their own bottom line and distributing that from their impact program to, oceans plastics on top of their actual core product being compostable. So, when you're starting from scratch and growing, we do have more of an opportunity than big multinational established brands to do the right thing from the get-go. And there's a lot of accountability measures that you can put in place as an emerging brand to help you on that journey, right? So at Scout, we are B Corp, kind of going through the transition of our pending status to the full B Corp status. And, that assessment takes several hours to go through. And, I actually did it just 2 weeks ago, and it had me thinking about all kinds of things I had not already been thinking about in the business around our impact, whether that was within, internal human resource processes that we have, all the way through to waste management with our producers, to logistics. So there's a lot of areas to incrementally improve. And I think we've heard the examples a couple of times now, like every little bit counts. And I think incrementally, as you continue to grow, there are a lot of small things that you can do. And, you're never going to be perfect. And we've talked about Patagonia. Check out the book Responsible Company. It's an amazing read. And they're actually very diehard about not using the word sustainable, because no business is truly sustainable. We're all here to make money, but also to, do good by people and the planet while doing so. So I like to refer to Scout as a not just for profit business. We're not a not for profit, but we're not just for profit business. And, you are not responsible as a brand founder or a brand to go and create the world's best, compostable packaging solution. That's for another company to go solve. So your job is to go and find the most responsible packaging solution that you can, that makes sense for your bottom line, for the cost of your products, for the value to your investors, to make sure that you're going to still move through that product, but the packaging solution that you're using is the most responsible. So like 360 fully sustainable is kind of impossible in business. I mean, you could definitely do that, with offsets and hardcore measurement, but we're all doing the best that we can. And, as emerging brands, when that's kind of baked into your DNA from the get-go, it ends up just kind of spilling through to every decision that you make as you continue to scale up.
Yeah. And I also look at sustainable business as just, I'm quite pragmatic. So I look at it as like just being in business. And as a business person, your job is to obviously create product and market and all of that, and generate revenue and be responsible in how you run the business, not just from a sustainable path, like for the planet, but also financially. Like that's a big thing for me. Like we don't have that VC funding that a lot of other companies have. And so for us, it's about really managing our cash flow and managing our P&L and making sure that we really know what things cost. We know our numbers. And we have really strong forecasts of what we expect. And so it's like, so I think it is completely doable. I think a lot of it is also about what you do and how you run your business and making sure that you're just a responsible business owner in general. Like, it's not the most, that's kind of what we try to just accomplish in general. So.
And from that, taking that insight that you just shared, and of course, Adam, everything you just shared there, if you take all of this and you look at it, it really comes down to how can you innovate and create problems inside your business that you need to solve them in order to cut back cost to continue on your journey of sustainability. And that's really what's going to allow your business to survive. So you've come in with a pattern, you've come in with a goal and a direction, and your outcome, and we'll use Flow Water and Nicholas as the starting point. When he started, it was, I want to be sustainable. I'm going to use Tetra Pak. I'm going to make sure that it's plant-based, and I'm going to use this first of its kind. And my goal is to get to 100%. And I'm going to walk through this journey over the years, and I'm going to keep modifying, keep changing, and keep focusing on areas where I can innovate and push back on my providers, as Adam was alluding to, and force them to innovate and change so that they can be doing the same thing at the same time as I am, so that when the end goal comes, that in 7 years, I've actually built a really strong brand that's sustainable, impactful, but at the end of the day, it's changed all the way through supply chain, right down to the base route, which is where I got the fish, where I got the coffee, and how I put it into the package and served off this great beer. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think it goes back to that trickle up example that I used, right? Like Nicholas has referenced a few times that he'd love if Pepsi or Coca-Cola started putting their products in a Tetra Pak, right? Because that's the influence that you want to have. There's these huge, massive multinational CPG companies that are largely responsible and contributing to the situation that we're now in on the climate side. And, if you come in as an emerging brand, you start to take market share away from them, then they start to pay attention. Well, how are they taking market share away? Oh, because they're not using plastic, or they have an impact program attached to the brand, or they're sourcing from XYZ. An example I can use, like Bumblebee ended up funding the same nonprofit. We did a 10K contribution to kelp reforestation along the California coast. 3 months later, Bumblebee cut a check for like $250,000 or something to that same nonprofit. That's great. Like that's awesome. Was I a little envious? They had more, funds to be able to deploy into an amazing initiative like that, for sure. But, they're paying attention and they're trying to figure out how to emulate the values of smaller brands who are actually standing for something. And to me, that's a sign of success for sure. In addition to the work that you do as a founder on your own.
And how much is the, oh, go ahead, Stephen, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that it's interesting that, obviously the three of us on the panel here are in these fairly like older industries, right? These industries like coffee and fish and beer. Amanda, sorry if that's what you're going to say, but yeah, it's just interesting because it's, I've been following along the conference and everything today. And, so we still have to compete on the digital shelf. We still have to do all of the things. We still have to pay attention to TikTok and the trends and everything like that. But now we also have, what's next in business, which is hopefully this. And so like, as Adam mentioned, if you can be one of those people that has like Flow Water, that has an impact on where business goes, and you can steer the ship in the right direction, that's what's actually really important here. It's really important to, kind of set the category apart. And so when you talk about competitors or other people that are doing things, it's how can you actually change your competitors' behaviors to then kind of format in the direction that you want to go. So, it's really interesting just to see, I like that this is at the end of the day today, because it's like, okay, learn how to spot trends, learn how to win the digital shelf, and then learn how to do it sustainably, because that's what's going to be the next thing in business. And so, that's just what the future of business holds, is you have to be able to compete now on a new, like it's almost another dimension to add to business.
Yeah, that's actually very true. I mean, in our case, we don't actually compete retail wise. I mean, I think it's just bandwidth, but we really wanted to build a brand kind of, obviously everyone wants to be Flow Water, but in that kind of way where we tried to build the brand and do it really online and have it through Amazon and then through our own Shopify store, and use that really as a way to sort of grow. And then the other thing too, is that if you have a small team, you don't have the time, and what you focus on makes a big difference. And so it's like, as one person, you're like, okay, I can go and spend hours and hours trying to find retailers who are going to be interested in us, or I can spend my time building up my brand, like getting new consumers, getting repeat consumers, because we have like a 30% repeat rate, and making people happy with what they drink in the morning. And then over time, hopefully having people come to us and be like, we really like what you're doing. We'd love to try you out, or whatever it is at the store, etc. So that digital shelf for us has been like the most important thing. And being on Shopify has been the most important thing for us. It's been the platform we use that's really changed the game, and all of their, apps and things like that. So, we use that as a way also to be sustainable. And then like, that's where kind of where you're at now. And so obviously growing and changing will just occur over time.
I love that. And I think there's a lot of value that gets brought by the industry leaders by putting an emphasis on this, where they start to make their own little changes, which influences the consumer to start looking for these packages more, looking for these trends and these changes that are happening in the space, and getting them on board and forcing them is only happening because of startups and small businesses that are growing, because they're starting to eat up that market share. And now they're starting to feel the pressure and saying, hey, we're losing 10, 20% year over year growth because these other groups are picking them up. And wait, the trend over here is that these groups are picking them up because wait, they're doing something we haven't done. They're changing packaging. They're have a better sustainable model. Hey, they're investing and giving money to non-for-profits that are doing these great things. We need to start picking our game up and making that change. And you can see that from, and I know we've chatted in the past to this, but you can see that from just even looking at Seaspiracy and the documentaries and the books that are coming out. They're really putting an emphasis on, hey man, we're killing our world. If we don't do something, we're going to be in dire straits in the next 5 to 10 years. And now people are starting to focus. So you've kind of got this large collective of groups, businesses, executives, startups that are now starting to really build into this model and starting to say, you know what, if we want to be here in 10, 20 years, we better start changing what we're doing and how we're doing it. So moving into that direction and how you guys have been doing with your businesses and really getting out and making a difference in the world, maybe we can touch on one last thing, and you can share a little bit about what you guys see in your categories as being the trend and maybe a tactic that you're using to kind of move through this quicker. Because I will say that from all the other panels and all the other startups, they may not have that tough push, which is going to that sustainability level, because you guys have started with that and built a brand around it. They may be moving more into it. You're already into it. So you kind of have to do education. You've got a lot of things that you have to do in order to get customers to line up and get in behind your brand. So what are one of the things that you guys see as a tactic and one of the trends that you see in your specific categories? And maybe we'll start with you, Adam.
Sure. I think, I think for a long time, we've, as consumers, have kind of separated human rights and environmentalism and have almost viewed them as two separate things, but they're very connected. Intersectional environmentalism, the health of people and planet go hand in hand. So if you are like an environmental activist, but you don't care about, the human welfare, the condition of people in the supply chain of a particular brand that you might buy, you're not really seeing the full picture then holistically. So big things for us are really around intersectional environmentalism and talking about both the environmental and the human rights issues that exist in, the category that we are in at Scout, which is seafood. And then kind of as a secondary to that, I think on the consumer side, really being more mindful now of their waste. So food waste narrative, upcycling, how you're really cutting back on waste or, diverting waste streams into other valuable resources. Those are huge trends that we see that we're continuing to talk about.
I love it. And what's one tactic that you would go after and start using?
Well, I mean, we're trying to do educational campaigns right now to show, what the true cost of one of our products is. Kind of like Everlane, a really great direct-to-consumer brand. If anybody's familiar, they were one of the first kind of, faster fashion companies to be fully transparent with their supply chain and actually share with consumers the total cost of the inputs of their products, where it was made, the factories being used, how much the workers were being paid in their supply chain. So we started to move in that direction to compare our $6 tuna can to a tuna can that costs $1, and then, trying to have consumers look at the differences between those two things and really like, how is this product so much cheaper than something that's been responsibly sourced and created? So we start to, bring them on the journey and guide them on that path towards more responsible purchasing in our category.
I love it. Amanda, how about yourself?
So I think the trend is going to I think the composting trend is definitely going to keep going. I think we're going to also move more into like home composting trend. And so for us, like finding capsules that are also like home compostable, not just commercial, I think is going to be a thing coming up in the future. And I think also from a product perspective, the trend is sort of coffee that has like collagen or these sort of components that add to health benefits. I think is something that's that's coming up more and more, and things that we're definitely looking into. And then hopefully, I think also too, maybe different types of capsules might become more popular that are maybe more European, as like the coasts, the coasts are the ones that mostly like European type of coffee. We find, at least in our data, it's mostly California, New York, those areas. So I think there's different kinds of capsules that maybe are in Europe. I'm thinking those might become more popular as well. Yeah, and then obviously the organic fair trade, that's sort of, I think, done, but I think it'll just keep going.
And tactic wise, what are some of the things that you see as a big, strong tactic for you guys, or just in general in the market?
Tactic wise, I think for us, really trying to like explain to the consumer, what we do and why we're different, and really sort of explain, a lot of the time you get a lot of like, oh, well, there's a lot of recycling programs and there's all this stuff going on that these big companies are doing. And it's not that they're not doing that. It's just that the amount of waste that's really created by them is so great that it doesn't really, it's not, to go to a brand that's smaller, that has more of like that wholesome sort of brand and that sort of outlook. I think, to try to explain that to customers too is something that we definitely want to do. And obviously expanding the product line. So incorporating regular coffee, hopefully one day getting into like compostable K-cups, and really figuring out how to, develop a brand with a strong product line that matches customer demand.
I love it. And you're right. There's so much disconnection from people understanding what recycling means and how much work goes into recycling one little cup or one steel tin. So a lot of things are missed in that aspect, and it's unfortunate. So they'll stick to their common brand because they think recycling covers it all, but 90% of that doesn't even make it to recycling. And when it does, it's not any better. So, Stephen, how about yourself?
Yeah, I just love this panel because all of the same strategy answers are the same answers that I would, also share. So it sounds like we're doing a lot of the same things. But, one of the things we focused on, or we're focusing on right now, is, beer is a largely raw materials and resource heavy product. And so, a lot of agricultural focused products, grains and water and things like that. And so we just said, what can we control the easiest, for that step one? And that's, the manufacturing process, which is something that we control. So, we're working on, when the inputs come in, what do we do with them, and how can we do that in a more efficient way? So a lot of our business, model is basically on the B2B side, which is, can we find the solution for the manufacturing portion, and then basically leverage that into, the rest of the product, as far as like zero emissions and things like that, because a lot of these other companies that are in my space are going to use offsets or carbon offsets to basically, reduce their emissions, which accomplishes similar goals from a consumer perspective, but at the end of the day, that extra 10% or extra 20% in manufacturing that we've put in will separate us. And then I think, as far as kind of how we're leaning into it, or what was the second part of the question was, same as a lot of the other answers, which is customer education. You mentioned Seaspiracy. We were joking about maybe making like a beer spiracy kind of video, where it's basically like, do you know what's in your beer? Do you know how this was made? So in a lot of the same ways where you like look into what's in your food or your agriculture or your meat or your fish on the table, but then you just buy a Budweiser, that doesn't make sense. You don't know where the supply chain came from. You don't know how that was made. And so a lot of our challenge now, and one thing that we're leaning into, is that content heavy. How do we educate the consumer on everything that goes into this? And one of the things we're kind of looking into as well is like, can you blockchain or like have some sort of, transparency in the supply chain of knowing exactly what went into your beer and how it was made, because that doesn't really exist in my current industry. So, we're just taking some of the playbooks of these other industries that have been there for a long time, and we're just applying it to, food and beverage.
I love it. Well, guys, thank you very much for joining us today. I think to summarize, there's a ton of stuff, again, writing like crazy, but I think that the biggest one is educating the consumer, educating them on understanding how the supply chain works and how you guys are differentiating it and building for long-term, and being innovative and finding ways along, your business timeline on how you can keep iterating on small problems inside of your business lines, and keep iterating and changing and getting to that full sustainability or full transparency on how your business operates in the next 3 to 5 years. I think that's obviously going to be huge. And I think you really got to, like you said, all of you have shared, it's really having values and sticking to the mission and lining those up. And when those line up, you're going to find that more consumers are going to want to be part of that mission and want to be part of that whole trend. And I use trend only because, 10% of the market is looking at this, and it needs to be 100%. So you guys are warriors. You're doing the right thing. Keep at it. And let's make it that every business, including the large CPG brands, have to start focusing on making the change to their packaging and to the way they do things. It can't be small businesses that are taking the impact and making a change. It has to be everyone. So thank you.
Thanks for having us today.
Thank you, guys.
Sorry, you guys are awesome. This was a great end to the panels. I think, Stephen, you're right. I didn't even think about that, but apparently it was the right order. So yeah, awesome. You guys did awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today and being part of everything that we're doing. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Cheers.
So next we're going to have some pitches. I think we have 11 companies that we're going to show you guys that we're super excited about. So here we go. So here they are.
Hi, I'm Katie Rayburn, co-founder at BioMilk Skincare. BioMilk is an award-winning clean skincare brand dedicated to optimal skin health through microbiome care and nutrition. Did you know that 2 times more women today say they have sensitive skin versus in the 80s? Despite so many products at our fingertips, skin conditions like irritation, acne, eczema, and others are on the rise. Modern life factors like stress and poor nutrition, as well as environmental stressors like pollution, allergens, and chemicals, can damage our skin's natural ecosystem. Just like we have in our gut, our skin has a unique bacterial environment, our skin microbiome. Cutting-edge research shows that a balanced skin microbiome is the key to healthy skin, free of sensitivities, irritation, and premature aging. BioMilk products feed the skin the clean nutrition it needs with prebiotics and probiotics and plant-based superfoods to maintain a healthy balance every day. Our team is comprised of me and my co-founder Valerie. We're CPG industry veterans. Our products have healthy margins but are positioned at an accessible masstige price point. This is a key competitive difference to many other brands in the space, with higher price points and inferior product quality. We take a hybrid approach to sales, selling both on our e-commerce site as well as in brick and mortar retail. 2022 will see the acceleration of our growth with a brand new distribution agreement with Whole Foods, which is the premier US natural food retailer. So we'll start shipping there this February 2022. We're currently raising an angel pre-seed round targeting $500,000 to successfully support our introduction at Whole Foods and other key accounts, to scale our digital advertising efforts, and to support our new product innovation pipeline. Thanks so much to OPN for hosting us today. You can get in touch with us through OPN or by emailing us at hello@biomilkskincare.com. Thank you.
Remix Snacks is a Canadian women-found snack company that was born from a simple mission created by 2 dietitians. My name is Jamie, and I'm one of the co-founders of Remix Snacks, alongside my partner Isabel, where we created the market's first nut-free vegan chocolate bar. As dietitians, we really saw 2 problems that impacted the work that we do: the abundance of food waste and the amount of poor nutritional snacks available. So we tackled these problems by doing what we knew best: recreating snacks. Or better yet, recreating chocolate bars, which are the top 3 leading snack categories in Canada. Our first product, Bean Bark, is a delicious, high fiber, high iron, and protein-rich dark chocolate snack. And by using the trending plant-based protein beans and upcycled fruits in our product, we add nutritional value and ingredients that have less of an environmental impact while reducing food waste. Our snack idea won 2 innovation prizes of $10,000 from McGill's flagship startup competition. And since then, we received 2 offers on Dragon's Den, in which Arlene Dickinson said herself that we're going to be the next biggest thing innovating the industry. In 2020, we launched into the Ontario local programs, Metro, Sobeys, and Loblaws, and we're now available in more than 150 points of sales across Quebec and Ontario. Plus, we grew our e-commerce sales by over 300% over the pandemic. We're projected to hit 500,000 sales next year with the following strategies in place. We now have a co-packer to scale our capacity by 400%. We have shopper marketing programs to double our retail successes from last year, and we're launching 2 new product lines. We're looking for retailers and distributors to help us expand into Canada, and we're interested in partnering with investors connected with the industry who believe in the success of our brand. We know that we've been the snack that you've been waiting for. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Marina, founder and CEO of Equo. Just a little bit of background on myself. I used to work launching brands and products for companies, including Unilever, Bacardi, and LG. Now, jumping right into it, did you know that during the pandemic, we produced 30% more waste versus prior year? And that 50% of all plastic produced is used only once? Now, sweeping government bans are taking place across the globe in an attempt to slow down the growth of the single-use plastic straw and utensils categories. Categories that have grown despite reusable alternatives such as metal, silicone, and the ever-polarizing paper straws, which have been around for years. And that is where Equo comes in. Equo is a sustainable brand providing 100% plastic-free, biodegradable, and compostable solutions for everyday single-use plastic items. We're starting off with drinking straws made of natural materials, including grass, rice, coconut, sugarcane, and coffee. Our products decompose in months, not centuries, and they're so easy to use and switch to, you don't have to change your lifestyle or your behavior. We're also disrupting the category by coming in and branding something typically commoditized, similar to bottled water or tissue paper, and giving people a reason to care about something as mundane as their choice in fork or straw, things that they never thought twice about. In terms of our attraction, we launched a successful Kickstarter campaign that was fully funded in just 3 days. We've also won 3 Stevie Awards, including a Gold Award in Innovation in Consumer Products. We've also been covered and featured in the media, including Business Insider, Brightly, and most recently, Forbes. In terms of our ask and our raise, we are raising $1 million on a $5 million pre-money safe. We're looking also for connections and help in getting our products in front of the right customers and the right people, and to get the brand awareness out there. On top of that, of course, we're also looking to raise.
Hi, my name is Jackie, and I am the owner of Fressy Bessie Foods. We are addressing a problem in the marketplace with our product. We know that there's lots of sugar in most popsicles on the market today. Our ice lollies are made with certified organic fruit and spinach in one of our popsicles. So we are trying to address the fact that there are diabetics out there are teething babies out there are people with lots of food sensitivities, and that's our market. We want to be able to say, if you can eat fruit, you can eat our popsicles.
My name is Harold Sokerka, and after 3 years of development, I created the Quick Bag It system, which is a unique portable bag holding device that adjusts to fit any type or size of bag and can be sold into so many different markets. My mission is to reduce the unnecessary single plastic bags that are plugging up our landfills. So I developed a recyclable polycloth bag that fits the unit and can be washed and reused in dozens of times. Now, we all know the world is facing a terrible plastics problem, and our recycling curbside collectors lost one of their biggest buyers when China stopped paying for container loads of contaminated recycled garbage that was being sent to them by the recyclers. This resulted in a huge financial blow, and they've been dealing with the repercussions ever since. The Blue Bin program, which they rely on, has failed because of 2 major problems: contamination and commingling of materials. As consumers, we are asked to deposit recycled materials into these bins, but despite using expensive sorting robotics and laser scanners, recycling companies can only retrieve, on average, 9% of these valuable materials, with the remainder ending up in the landfill. My patent-pending system is proving to retrieve 80%, right from the source, in the home, not at the end of a conveyor belt. Since municipalities profit from collecting waste, this is a double-edged sword. They increase dumping fees to waste haulers and raise taxes to homeowners. Recognizing these problems, I've developed a very simple sorting system where the consumer gets rewarded for proper recycling, and one that is a huge benefit to all stakeholders who are struggling to improve sustainability. Upon signing an NDA with me, I would be delighted to share the secrets of the system, which is ready to be launched. I am seeking $500,000 for the right equity partner who has the right talent and a passion to help launch this system.
Hi there, my name is Saida. I'm here to introduce you to Sidamia. Sidamia is an African cooking sauces. It's free from allergen, free from gluten, free from preservatives, and is 100% plant-based, as well as no added sugar and low GI. And the best way to tell you about my project is to tell you how I come up with the idea. I have a daughter that struggles with allergy. Since her childhood, I always had a tough time finding suitable sauces that I could cook for my daughter, but it was very difficult for me to find one that is completely free from allergen. Therefore, the idea was born, and since then I start distributing the sauces to up to 22 shops within London area, and then also activated my website and selling the product from my website. I'm looking for investment and to grow, but because I have a buyers that really interested in the product, which are really really big supermarkets, and I cannot just approach them yet unless I have the investment. And this product is at the moment available, and if you're really interested, you can contact me, and I can provide you with the samples so you can see yourself. And I hope you get in touch with me and let me know if you're interested. Thank you for listening, and I hope to hear from you soon. Thank you. Bye.
Introducing the Happy Shopper Personal Cart. It's a full-behind cart that's stronger, lighter, and folds flatter than any other cart. It weighs less than 3 pounds, folds to less than 3 inches thick, yet carries 50 pounds plus. Trips to the market are easy. You can even hang it from your cart. Load groceries on the Happy Shopper, then effortlessly place it into your trunk. With its slim features, it can go anywhere. Even more, you'll be amazed how easy it can be stored away.
Hello, my name is Amanda Harari, and I run a company called Woken Coffee. We're helping to solve the problem that comes with single-serve coffee and espresso pods. So our first product is a compatible compostable Nespresso pod, and I have a little video just to share quickly. we are currently on Amazon. So this is like our Amazon store, and this is an example of one of our listings. We also currently sell on our website. So this is an example of our website, and here you have an array of products. We recently just launched ground coffee as well, which is quite exciting. Also in compostable packaging, and we've also added fair trade and organic as an option as well. In addition, we have a really interesting business model. We're also going to do over $1 million this year in revenue. We also have a 30% repeat rate and a high average order value of over $40. And we're really looking to expand and really create a brand that has a really interesting product line with a focus on sustainability, and are looking for, funds to do that. So really marketing, customer acquisition, and inventory, and potentially to go into retail if that's an option for the future and possibility. So those are some of the things we're trying to do, and we really want to become a big company and grow it and hopefully build something really exciting. So thank you so much, and all the best. Bye.
Hi everyone, my name is Marie Chevrier and I'm the founder at Sampler. I want us to do something fun for a minute. Take a second to think about what makes your product so special. Whether you're the investor or the founder or a team member at a CPG brand, you must know, what is it that makes consumers convert to your product every single time? I will bet you that the majority of you used words like the taste, the smell, the ingredients, the packaging. All of these things are best experienced via trial. That's why product sampling is the most effective way to get consumers to convert to purchase. By getting them to try your product, they can see those benefits firsthand. Yet the majority of product sampling is still done in completely antiquated ways. At Sampler, we want to change that. By connecting with consumers online first, we can actually make sure that we reach your targeted audience 100% of the time. We deliver them a sample directly at home so that they can enjoy with their families and in the comfort and safety of their home. From there, because we've connected with them digitally first, we can continue the conversation, ask them how they felt about your product, and actually see whether or not they converted to purchase. That's the power of digital product sampling. And we at Sampler have been doing this for 7 years, worked with hundreds of brands, and scaled our channel to a point where digital product sampling can actually be just as cost effective as handing out samples at events. Please be in touch with Sampler so that we can help you reach your goals. Because we know that the best way to get a consumer to convert to your brand is by getting them to try your product.
Hi, I'm Ted Fleming, the founder and CEO at Partake Brewing. Health and wellness is a major global trend. There's no denying it. We all want to live longer, healthier, happier lives. And today, millions of people are looking at reducing their alcohol consumption as just one way to achieve these goals. But it's not easy. There haven't been good alternatives in the market for decades. Not drinking or drinking less hasn't been socially acceptable. And it's just not been a fun category to be a part of. And those are all challenges that I personally faced when I gave up alcohol after being diagnosed with Crohn's disease. My solution to that problem was creating Partake Brewing, a fun brand with true purpose to break down the negative stigma and make healthy choices easy when it comes to social drinking. We make it easy with a variety of great tasting non-alcoholic beers that are made with natural ingredients and are as low as 10 calories per can. And non-alcoholic beer has been growing at a tremendous rate, being the fastest growing segment within beverage alcohol over the last few years. And Partake Brewing is leading the charge here in Canada. Our market penetration is broad and deep across various channels, and we have significant traction across the US. So who's our competition? We're competing against some of the biggest brands and beer companies in the world, and we're more than holding our own. The reason for that is the Partake advantage. Great tasting product, variety across popular beer styles, the lowest calories in all of beer, and that's all wrapped into a purpose and authenticity unmatched in the category. So what's our big goal? Simply to make non-alcoholic consumption commonplace, healthy, and fun. Cheers.
Who says you can't be as pumped about Saturday morning as Friday night? Who says renovating has to be all work? Who says you can't sip and stroll? Who says you can't partake in a great tasting 10-calorie non-alcoholic beer? Cheers to adulting.
Hi, I'm Joseph Grimaldi. I'm the owner of Cafe Canada. I want to welcome you to Cafe. Everybody who really enjoys coffee and aficionados drink the French press, but the problem with the French press is this. It's an absolute mess. I have grinds all over the place and it goes in your coffee mugs. It's just terrible. Now there's a new way with no mess and no stress. It's coffee. It's basically a filter for your French press. Put it inside, then you add your favorite coffee, and then you simply add your hot water. You twist the tabs, you let it steep for 4 minutes, you press through, and then you pour your coffee out. And this is what is the kicker. This is the changer in all of this. What you have now is simply just a bag that goes into your compost or into your garden. It's available in 3 cup, an 8 cup, and also in 12 cup. Great for camping, boating, hiking, cottaging, RVing, and outdoors. There's no cleanup, as you can see. The product is 100% biodegradable. It's oxygen bleach, which is much more neutral for the environment compared to chlorine bleach, which the other filters are. Available here in Canada at www.coffee.ca. This is the best way to enjoy the French press with absolutely no mess.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. It was fantastic. We totally appreciate your support in this event and in OPN in general. Jeffrey?
Yeah, you bet. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us today. I will send out a first thank you to Laura for putting together an absolutely amazing day. We've got to talk to a lot of amazing entrepreneurs and founders, and I think overall, I'm hitting the red green button again, but fantastic job. So great effort. I think you kicked it out of the park. So nice. And thank you for everybody else for joining us on the panels and the keynotes. I think overall, everybody did a fantastic job and really enjoyed the interaction, the content, and we will be cutting and editing this and sharing it out over the upcoming weeks. And again, thank you very much for all of the support. And if you need any information regarding the startups or any of the people that were on the panels, feel free to reach out. We'll be happy to make the connection, and any other information we can help with, send us an email at info@opn.ninja and we'll get back to you right away. But thank you very much and have a fantastic day.
Thanks, everybody.